Las Vegas Raiders 27, Denver Broncos 14.
God, this was another game that felt like, why is it taking place?
Well, you have to play out the string, man.
Do you, though?
You do.
Like, if you just call the game in the third quarter, would anybody really be sad?
Both teams finish 8-9, tied for second place in the AFC West. Chiefs become the only team in the AFC West with a winning record, officially. And that's it. Samir White goes 25 carries for 112. Aiden O'Connell goes 20 of 31 for 244 and 2 touchdowns. Once again, Aiden O'Connell, like every other week, looks like a reasonable starter.
Yeah, he had a solid game. Yeah. He also had one of those plays where like the ball just fell out of his hand on a pump fake. I kind of feel like even if it goes forward, that should be a fumble. Like if you can't keep hold of the football while you're pump faking, I don't feel like you should get bailed out just because you managed to lose it whilst your hand was going forwards.
Ball was going forward.
Like if you just drop the ball, you drop the ball. It should be a fumble. Aiden O'Connell had a fascinating touchdown to Davante Adams where it's in the red zone. I forget who the player was. Who was the guy covering Adams? Give me a second and I'll dig it up.
I just want to say O'Connell, his 2 big-time throws, a bomb to Trey Tucker, and then it was a 17-yarder, but pocket movement, and then just an absolute laser beam in between.
That was such a nice throw.
In between 3 defenders.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the plays last year in the offseason we're watching his tape being like, man, there's some special throws on his film.
So he had this play to Davante Adams for a touchdown over Jaquan McMillan. And McMillan actually covered it really, really well. Adams sort of gave him the stutter in the end zone and then broke off, and McMillan read it, covered him perfectly, and was all over him. And the pass that Aiden O'Connell dropped in had so much air under it that McMillan made a total and utter mess of the ball when it arrived. Like, I think he expected it to be coming at significantly faster velocity or with a much lower arc or whatever it was. Like, he just didn't expect there to be that much air under the ball. So he'd like covered Adams off the release, was locked in on him, had Adams in his hip pocket, and then like looks back for the ball, goes up to play it, like there it is, and it's like, oh no, it's not arriving yet. It's like it's gonna hang there for another second or two, and he just like dived past the ball onto the floor, and Adams was able to just like stand there and wait, and the ball drops into his hands with McMillan having prostrated himself in front of him. It was just, I don't know if that was deliberate by O'Connell or not, to like, I'm going to specifically put a lot more air under this and drop it into a bucket. I mean, if it was amazing. If it wasn't, he ended up just getting very lucky because McMillan, having done all the hard work of you just covered Davante Adams trying to shake you loose in the end zone, he then took himself out of the play by just diving out of his way.
The one early highlight for Denver, 24-yard touchdown to Jerry Jeudy. Got him isolated.
Jerry Jeudy randomly, like now he shows up. The season's done. You benched your quarterback. Why is Jerry Jeudy terrible? He had multiple plays in this game where he was just outrunning people, run after the catch, like elusive Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, to me, the big, not takeaways from this game, but coming out of this, both teams have quarterback decisions coming up this offseason. Both teams have maybe receivers that will end up elsewhere. Guys like Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Davante Adams for the Raiders. I mean, it feels like both of these teams could have a lot of turnover at key positions with big names coming off 8 and 9 seasons. To me, it's probably a disappointment for the Broncos, even though they weren't great last year because of having Russell Wilson and having Sean Payton. For the Raiders, it feels like they overachieved. They overcame early issues with Josh McDaniels, benching Jimmy Garoppolo, going with Aiden O'Connell, and it was a good finish here for Antonio Pierce. And a lot of people think Antonio Pierce is the guy that should be getting the job. Again, we've talked a lot about the interim head coach, hiring him full-time. Personally, I think it's risky. I don't think you're – not risky, but I don't know that what you're evaluating. But it feels like there's a lot of the groundswell for Antonio Pierce and the energy he's bringing, the way the defense played down the stretch. There's a big push for Antonio Pierce to be the guy. I don't necessarily disagree with it. I'm just interested to see what the Raiders do here.
I think at this point it's very difficult to not hire him. Not 100% because of what he's done, but because you did it before with Rich Bisaccia and it went terribly.
Yeah.
So now, like, Bisaccia did a really good job. He galvanized everybody, and instead you're like, no, I'm going to go for the big splashy name, bring in Josh McDaniels, and that was a disaster. Now the same thing is happening. Antonio Pierce comes in. He galvanized everybody. The team loves him. Like every Raider you hear says, I want this guy to be head coach. The fans love him. So everybody wants you to hire this guy. You didn't do it the last time they wanted that to happen. If you don't get it right this time, there's going to be a lot of pissed off people. Like if you have decided that we're not giving it to Antonio Pierce, you have to nail the hiring. Otherwise, you're going to get all kinds of blowback from this. So I also think, Antonio Pierce's resume as a coach prior to this is terrible. Like he had a failed stint as a high school head coach, and then he didn't do well in a sequence of jobs at Arizona or Arizona State, one of those two. That didn't go well either. And you're like, there's literally nothing on his resume that says he's going to be a good head coach. But we also know that being a good head coach has very little to do with like coaching. It's man management. It's culture setting. It's tying everything else together. It's all this other stuff, right? And while I don't think being an interim head coach is necessarily proof that you're going to be good at that, it's probably as good a resume as you can put forward. Like the really important part is probably hiring coordinators and all the other stuff, right? So, I don't know that you can do a better job of interviewing for the job than what he's just done. Like if Mark Davis decides, actually the guy I want is Ben Johnson, right? I don't know what Ben Johnson can do in an interview that would provide a better case than what Antonio Pierce has just done.
The case for Antonio Pierce might be someone like Dan Campbell in Detroit.
Right.
Because he's clearly had a ton of success there. Because again, what's his scheme? What did he bring? He wasn't a play caller. He wasn't, the next genius offensive coordinator. He was CEO, culture setter, and everything that you said. If you view Antonio Pierce as that guy, then you'll learn that in interviews. You'll learn that in the interviews as well, and what his plan is. But Dan Campbell actually might be, Campbell plus Bisaccia might be the thing that gives Pierce the job for the Raiders.